Hi survivors, if you are struggling to find a sense of normality, a sense of peace, or even a sense of purpose, since or while being in recovery, then this video is for you. Uh, this isn't about the version of you, that's putting on a happy face, smiling for the photos, um, or, that expectancy to get back to normal, get back to old ways, get back to work, that sort of thing. But this is about the quiet or even the loud, those voices in your head, the confusing part that rallies around in your mind, constantly driving you up the wall, you know, all these different thoughts, all these different how do I put it? The different perspective, but about the way you look at things, the way you plan, how far ahead do you look, for me, I couldn't look 6 months further than 6 months at a time. Reason being, my scans were every 6 months, so every 6 months that fear, that anxiety, that tension, that worry, that build up, it just flooded back in, as soon as it was time to go for the scan again. It all came back, so I couldn't plan more than 6 months at a time. But again, that fades, and all this is happening in your mind, you know. Are you gonna work again? What are you gonna work as if you can't do the same profession? You know, but how are you gonna earn money? Varying different things, all this running around in your brain while everyone else just thinks that you're okay, you know, you've come through the worst of it, you've got through recovery, you're back on your feet to a degree, and you're looking positive, you know, feeling positive, being positive, but you're just missing that little bridge, that little, you know what I mean, that final sense of, like I say, normality or purpose, and everyone else just thinks that you're okay. So that's what this video is about, or that's who this video is for, to let you know that it's okay, it's normal, and it'll pass. You'll find your new sense of purpose, the new sense of value, and you'll get back to feeling a fulfilled life again, you know. So surviving illness or major surgeries, it changes you in a way that you could never see coming, you could never predict, you know. You couldn't imagine it. It feels lonely. The reason being because there's nobody that could have prepared you for it, no matter how much research after being diagnosed or whatnot. But when you speak to your consultants, when you're speaking to surgeons, doctors, nurses, you know, even other people who have been through similar or the same illnesses, they may have had different symptoms, so you can only prepare so far, but everybody reacts differently. So there's only so much that you can do to prepare, or there's only so much that somebody can tell you. You know what I mean? So I know this, and like I said, I know this all too well because I've been through it. I'm a survivor of adrenal cancer, and I've also had 2 open heart surgeries. So the whole world around me saw the fact that I was recovered, and back on my feet. They saw that as my finish line, that I've done it, beat it, gotten through it. But it wasn't the finish line for me. For me, it was almost like the start of something new, a new battle, a new adventure, if you want to put it in a positive way. Um, so difference with anything I've been through beforehand to now was that there was a more focused or more direct, approach towards mental health and emotional care. These are things that I've never worked on before, These are things that basically we all know about, but it's very much overlooked. Mental health is very much overlooked until obviously you're going through a situation where you realise how important it is. But the more we can do to look after it, to maintain it on a day-to-day basis, the better that we can get through things when tough times come at us, when battles come at us, when we need to dig deep and find that inner strength to look after ourselves emotionally, and make sure we don't lose ourselves, lose our heads, get angry, feel lost. But yeah, very much a mixed bag of emotions, mixed bag of feelings, and a lot of things that can make your mental health, your mental mindset deteriorate and deteriorate in a way that it's almost like it's on a slope, once that ball's rolling, it just continues and continues to get worse. So something to be mindful of and something that we should be taking care of and just doing something daily, just to help us. Light walk, out in the fresh air, even just sitting in the garden for a bit, as long as like weather permitted, of course. But open your windows if you can't get outside. Open the windows wide, let that fresh air in, let that breeze circulate, and then close your windows back and get back to what you was doing. Just a good 10-15 minutes to half an hour, some fresh air in. It's just a start, off the top of my head. There were days, even months, where I felt disconnected, where I felt like no matter how much I explained or tried to let people know my point of view or how I was feeling or whatever was going on in my head, it was basically, I always felt like there was a kind of absence, like a void, like something wasn't quite connecting, like I felt isolated. And although people said how they understand, because I wasn't feeling it or hadn't been through it, it was a case of I felt like you don't really understand, you just pay me lip service in a way, without being rude about it. There were days where I felt guilty because I didn't think I was being grateful enough, I didn't see the blessing that was being given to me. I was concentrating on what I'd been through and the hard times, the tough times, the rough situations, And on the other side of that, the blessing is that the fact that I've got my own place to live. I live amongst nature, If it wasn't for me taking on my dog, I wouldn't know that, and it's not even a stone throw away. Both sides of my road, at the end of the road, there's nature, I'm surrounded by it. Then again, around the corner on the other side, I've got a retail park, I've got a train station, I've got main bus routes that go into the main city. It's all right there for me, I've just got to open my eyes and see it. So there will be days where you don't feel like yourself anymore because you're trying to understand again who you are, who you've become, And if this resonates with you, I feel that we have a connection and I want you to hear me out, because I want you to understand that there's somebody that has been through it. There's somebody who understands more than you may realise, and somebody there who wants to help you get through it and make it a little bit easier for you. You know what I mean? So recovery is not just about the physical, you know. Think of the physical as like your visual, you know. This is what people are seeing. So they've seen you fall ill, they've seen you battle it, they've seen you recover or your recovery, you know, and now you're on the other side where you're back up and about, you're back out and about, you know, doing daily things, looking normal and seeming okay to people and normal to people, but they're not realizing how or, or where you might be pushing yourself, you know. So the physical is just a visual. Think of it like the visual changes that people can see, and in turn you can see, you know. And then from that, you have to accept that recovery is grieving and understanding that it's a loss of the person that you once was. You're not the same person that you was before. You've got a completely different outlook on life. You've got a completely different perspective. You've got different wants. You've got different needs, you know. So the person that you was before has now gone, and now you're the person that you are now. And it's about adapting and stepping into those shoes, you know, and moving forward with that. So it's learning how to trust your body again, because when you go through something and then you're on medication for a long, long time, you can forget, you can become reliant, you know, you become addicted even, you know, to the medication that you're receiving. You become reliant, your body becomes reliant on it and what it's doing for you. So that's another form of letting go and putting that trust into your body, letting it repair and do the work for itself. You know, after going through a traumatic experience, that does take its time and things do creep back into your head, you know, and worries creep back in. So it's figuring out and understanding who you are, who you want to be, and the steps you're going to make moving forward to get to where you want to be. Now that you've gotten through everything that you've been through, one of the biggest lessons that surviving has taught me is that healing doesn't happen on a timeline. And what I mean by this is that everybody is different. Everybody's body is different. We all have different shapes, sizes, you know, race, creeds, religions. There's differences with all of us. So there's no set timeline as to this is when you'll be healed by. And a prime example of this for me is when I was coming off my hydrocortisone, which is my steroid treatment. My consultant weaned me down off it. And when I came off it, he expected my body to bounce back, I suppose, you know, start acting in a way where it was fully working on its own to a degree, a form of degree. And when I went to see my consultant a month after coming off the hydrocortisone to see how my body was getting on, you know, he wanted to run a few tests and whatnot. When the results came back, he wasn't quite happy. The numbers weren't quite where he wanted them to be. So he advised me to go back onto hydrocortisone, give it another year, and then start weaning myself back off it again. But in myself, I felt okay. You know, I have to take these hydrocortisone anyway if I'm going in for treatment at the dentist or I fall ill, you know, to catch a cold or flu. So I always have to have a supply around me. So I thought to myself, I'm going to give it a bit more time. I'm not going to go straight back onto it because it's took a lot of work to get to that point. So I gave it another week or so. But I haven't been back on them since, but I gave myself another couple of weeks and I felt like I'd fully adjusted. And when I'd gone back in for another checkup since then, my levels, he was a lot more happy with my levels. So, there's no dead set timeline for healing, for recovery, it's down to the person, down to the individual. But it's about building and maintaining your mindset, and looking after yourself as best as you can with the ability that you have got so that it can happen. Maybe not quicker, but with a set quality, you know. So with your recovery, you don't you don't owe anybody positivity. You can be yourself. You have your up days, you have your down days. You don't need to be constantly putting on a brave face. You know, show up as you are, be who you are at that moment. You know, it's down to the other people to be understanding and to understand and accept that you've gone through a tough time. And be grateful in a sense, but just show a bit of gratitude in a sense that you've turned up, you've made the effort, and you've pushed yourself to do it. So you don't owe positivity with that as well. You will have good days, you will have bad days again. People around you have to accept and understand. There's a level of empathy that needs to be given to you. I know you won't always receive it, and there's various moments that I can tell you myself where the empathy and the that comfort, that level of care, emotion just isn't there sometimes. So as much as you have to take the rough with the smooth, you have your good days and bad days, they have to take that from you, unfortunately. You try your best, we all know that. So you don't owe anyone the version of yourself that they used to know. That version of you no longer exists. You're rebuilding this new version of yourself, and you're getting to know this version of yourself. So you don't owe any of that to anybody. That's something that the sooner you let go of it, the easier things become. Do you know what I mean? So what you do need and what you do deserve is love and support. That's as much of that as you can get is what you need, and is what's going to help you and motivate you to keep pushing forward. So that's why this channel exists. That's why I felt called and I felt the need to make a channel for people out there who are in similar situations to what I've been through. And myself, I was looking on YouTube, I was looking for videos, looking for inspiration, looking for motivation, but I couldn't find anything as direct as for what I have been through, that side of recovery, that side of coming through trauma, coming through illness, surgeries, tough experiences. I was finding, like informal videos, educational videos that will let you know about symptoms and what you may go through. But on the other hand, videos about like inspirational videos about like motivation, like the same similar sort of thing, mindset and that sort of thing. But the difference is they are for the old me, get up, get to work, that motivation, that something to put on in the morning. that's gone now. It's not the type of thing that I need, and that's not the type of thing I feel like you're looking for yourself. That's why I've made this channel, you know, to have honest conversations about survival, you know, from somebody who's been through and going through survival, you know, and rebuilding myself at the same time that I'm making these videos, you know, so that in a sense we're doing it together, but I may be a couple of steps ahead, you know, because I've pushed myself in a way to get through these things, you know, get these qualifications and push my body in a way to get myself back to a physical strength, if you know what I mean, so I can push with the mental and feel uplifted from all directions, you know, and I can bring that to you through the channel. So it's not from a textbook, it's not from theory, it's not from what I've learned while becoming certified, it's from what I've lived, it's from everything I've put myself through learning and what I've been through my trauma and my experiences, you know. So if you're watching and thinking, yeah, this resonates with me, you know, I understand what you're saying, I've been through this, it's not the same, but it's similar, I've had these feelings, you know, then you belong here. I promise you, I'm doing nothing but helping to rebuild you, you know. Your struggle doesn't wipe out your strength, you know. You've got that strength inside you. It's just about finding it, you know, grabbing hold of it and using it and rebuilding what you've got, you know. And your story, again, is far from over, you know. There's plenty more to go. This is just a chapter, you know, stepping stones, you know, that you can look back and say, I've been through that. This is what I've done, and this is how I've got to where I am, you know, now later in life. So if this video helps you feel less alone, you know, consider subscribing, or please leave a comment, not for the algorithm, you know, but for somebody else who is recovering, you know, who is surviving, or who is struggling, so that they can find this too, you know. I'm glad that you're here. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Goodbye.